Supposedly, Nikola Tesla made a remote control boat that he unveiled at some World's Fair or something like that. And, using, radio control signals, and people just kept insisting that there was like a trained monkey in there, or there were wires. Like, people just could not get their head around the wireless technology, and they thought it was just some scam. It's kind of come full circle now, where it's like,
dude, that guy was like, when you read the history of how much he was just like, he was right about so much, but he was just bullied by Edison. Like they did the equivalent today of, he's like, I invented something kind of neat. And they're like, shut up, incel, you fucking loser. You get no pussy, dude. You get no pussy. You're sitting there, look at your technique for electricity is killing elephants.
Oh yeah. I mean, Edison, I think at one point put like of course he claimed it was some sort of hyperbole, but he was like, I'll give $20,000 to whoever can come up with this, some kind of switching relay problem or something. And like, supposedly like next morning or something, Tesla rolls in like, yo, here you go. And he was like, I didn't really mean that.
Yeah. I'll take that and take a look.
Asshole, but publicly electrocuting elephants and pets and doing all this smear campaign stuff on Tesla.
He wanted people to know that, direct current was how dangerous it was and deadly it was.
Any current's dangerous if you shock the shit out of something with it.
I just don't like seeing them kill those elephants.
I don't understand. I started looking into it because Donald Trump did that gibberish rant about the electric boats. Did you see that?
Yeah, I sure did. My goodness. They gotta, there's no reason for him not to have a working teleprompter. I don't get it. When he gets up there and it breaks, and there's not like a NASCAR pit crew of tech guys running up and like bringing in a whole new podium, like I don't know how that happens.
Was he talking about like a big boat with a powerful electrical engine sinking and him getting shocked by it?
You get electrocuted because there was a shark 10 yards away, and he's asking some guy. He keeps repeating again and again. No one's ever asked this question. They said no one ever asked this question. I think maybe it's my connection to MIT. His uncle taught at MIT.
That's a polite way to be like, I'm baffled by the idiocy. I saw, like, speaking of AI and some of it being funny, I haven't seen Trump do that monologue, but someone put it into, that monologue on Jaws where the guy's like, 15 men went into the water, but only one came out of the water. Like, it was that, but him saying all that shit from Trump. Like, they told me it was a wonderful question, and I'd never been asked that before. He said, I'm a genius. He said, what if a boat goes down and there's a very powerful, sort of incredible magnetic engine of electricity on it, but there's a shark 10 yards away? What if should I take? And then at the end, I guess Trump ended it by saying, I'd take the electricity. I wouldn't want to deal with the shark.
I want the electricity of the shark too. I don't know the answer though to his question. I want to be like, oh, you're so stupid, but low key, why is it I can touch the two poles of a battery, like a DC battery, and it's nothing? Yet when I do it with a wrench, it's a really big deal right away. Why does AC kill me, but DC's fine? But DC fucking hates wrenches. I can tell you that for sure. Mm-hmm. I'm confused.
It has to do with the amperage more than the voltage, and DC, when you touch it with your hands, for example, the car battery, your body is a conductor, but there isn't enough amperage in that battery to push through the resistance of like your thumb.
Wait, doesn't a battery have like 650 cold clamping amps and a AC have like 15 amps? It's almost
yes, but okay, I'm doing a poor job explaining it, but like the voltage is so much higher, you're cramming more energy into a given wavelength. Like that battery, yes, if you cross those terminals with a wrench, you've closed that circuit with the metal because the DC can push. The metal conducts well enough that it allows the current to flow on the DC. Whereas if you grab it at your house, that car battery is, let's see, what's the way to put it? It's cold cranking amps, but it's in a small battery. Whereas like, think about like water, like as a hose. Like if I take a bucket with a 2-inch hose and I turn the water on, that water is going to blast you in the face. But if I hook it to the bottom of a hydroelectric dam with 1 billion gallons of water behind it, that force is going to come. There's so much more power pushing it through. So like that little battery doesn't have, it's like getting slapped, but it's not like getting slapped by a truck. So you're not catching as much current. Cause I've lit myself up with, 12 volt, and 24 volt plenty of times. You just don't have enough. There's not enough power behind it. Whereas when you tap into like a welder or a dryer plug or something at your house, you have, high tension lines carrying, thousands and thousands of volts pushing it down to you. I'm probably an actual electrician. I'm sure you can explain that better.
The amperage, right? The voltage is pushing the amperage. So you've got a 12 volt battery pushing a lot of amps, but the resistance from your skin, it can't push that amperage into your body. Whereas something like a metal wrench, very conductive, and it immediately shorts. And your wall is kind of the opposite. You've got all that voltage and not a whole ton of amperage, but it's coming through a copper wire and it's continuous.
I think in the water analogy, the voltage is the speed that's flowing through the hose, and the amperage is the diameter of the hose. And voltage times amperage is watts, but in this case, it would be gallons, and that's the parallel. But I'm still a little bit twisted. Like, why is it voltage seems to work with bad conductors better than amperage does? I don't know. Back to the boat.
I don't know
confused. I'll take the question. I understand how that works.
I don't know what happens. I know when you get those like lithium ion big car batteries wet, they have a meltdown, right? Like I've seen so many of them do that crazy fire that looks like science fiction, that blue crazy fire. They have to have a special firefighting kit to deal with electric car fires.
Yeah, I have a buddy of mine's a firefighter, and they've had to deal with that a few times. Because like the lithium, it's almost like a fuel. It's the difference in like with gasoline, it's the gas vapor that's burning, not the liquid fuel. Whereas like a diesel, it's the actual fuel. Same thing with those lithium batteries. Like when it catches fire, that becomes like a literal fuel. It doesn't need to like blend with the atmosphere to burn. Like it would burn in a vacuum or underwater. We actually had to deal with that recently. In about a week, we're going to take the junkyard cars back to Alaska to throw them off the cliff again for the 4th of July, which is
nice,
an absolutely awesome thing we do.
I solved the nuclear thing like 8 years ago.
You solved
it?
Did?
Yeah, I solved it. Yeah. So the problem, you're welcome. They won't listen to me. I've been writing letters. So hear me out. The problem every time we've had a nuclear disaster is, but for one reason or another, the rods got too hot. They ran out of water. They couldn't keep the thing cooled down, so it melted down, and then there was a fire, and then that created a steam explosion. The roof blows off, and then you got some elephant's foot poisoning half of Europe. But why don't we build the whole thing under the ocean? Why is it the whole thing under the ocean, where even if you have a radiological disaster, it's just absorbed by the ocean?
It's probably going to fuck up a lot of fish, which is better than people.
No, they're fine. Like seawater is like really good at absorbing radiation. Like they're fine.
Oh, well, that's all. Then sold.
It doesn't seem like a way to lower the cost.
Yeah. Oh, it'll be way more expensive. They're like so much more expensive that it just barely makes money.
The ocean tears up everything, but
because that's how you get expensive energy.
Yeah. But I see what you're talking about, though. I mean,
we get an aqua lab down there, though, boys. We can get sea people down there. That's what I've always wanted. I would be a sea miner if I got to be like the abyss. I want to be down there under the ocean, on the ocean floor, because that's as close to another planet. That's as close to another planet as any of us are ever going to get, is the bottom of the fucking ocean.
Yeah.
I would get in that new Sea Explorer thing that's not powered by an Xbox controller if I could get a seat in that thing. I bet the seats are cheap because of what happened to the last people that went on that ride.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, they should be cheap. Like taking bootleg rides to the Titanic
they should pay
location.
You, huh?
Like they should absolutely pay that.
Yeah, I have, as you can tell behind me, I like to collect stuff. These are just just a few of my Cannonball mementos. But I have a whole collection of little historical things, and I have a piece of the Titanic. It's a piece of the rear smokestack. I designed a logo for one of the submersible companies about 20 years ago, and they had a whole panel of it, and they gave me a little piece of it. And
that's awesome.
It's kind of crazy, like those little bits. It's like I'll get it out of the box and look at it. Like, a lot of people have died in a lot of sunken ship accidents, but obviously the Titanic's got so much story behind it. But it's kind of crazy, like sometimes like to hold that little piece and kind of feel that connection and be like, wow, this part of this boat went down on that boat with all of those thousands of people. It's crazy. But yeah, as far as taking the sub down to see it, like they weren't even going to be like, you couldn't really even see out the window, if I understood correctly. Like it wasn't like you were going to actually see it anyway.
I think so.
It wasn't.
James Cameron went down there for Zach. Can you find
James Cameron had a real submarine?
He did. But I'm talking about the one that imploded.
Yeah,
the one
that
imploded was shit. Yeah, I might be.
They had like one little, like they would have had to take turns looking through the tiny little porthole, and it would have all been fisheye lens, weird. Yeah,
I mean, I guess
that thing hadn't exploded and turned them all inside out.
You think they did that at the last second? They're like as it turns off, they're like, and we don't even get a view. What if it died facing away from the Titanic?
They didn't get They didn't get anywhere near the Titanic when that thing exploded.
I thought they got kind of close.
They're like halfway there, dude. That's the one that blew
up. But like the rapid depressurization of that thing, like those people got like incinerated. Like that when that thing imploded, it increased the air pressure so much that like the temperature raised to the point where they basically got like almost like cremated, vaporized even. Like it was
on the other side. I think that thing's cool as shit. You're talking a lot of shit for someone who has no submarine at all.
What's your submarine look like, Kyle? I don't have one.
I don't have a submarine.
How close did your submarine get?
Dude, 4 hours at Home Depot and I could cobble something like that together, though.
It looks like you took a propane tank and stuck a porthole on one end and a door on the other and put the whole thing on some stilts with little paddles on them.
Genius idea.
Bad.
Get yourself a Mad Catz
made out of carbon fiber, which can be phenomenally strong, but like
in a hockey stick.
And I'm kind of talking out of my ass here, like as a welder and fabricator. I mean, I know a little bit about metal, but there's like actual like metallurgists. Like a friend of mine's wife's a metallurgist, and it's like science and chemistry and physics and all these charts, things like that. Like if you make one of these spheres out of titanium, aluminum, steel, whatever, like that material on a molecular level has a very finite strength and pressure yield and angles and all this. You can do the math and determine pretty much exact on how strong it is. But something like carbon fiber, which is a composite, is inherently going to have strong areas, weak areas. There's going to be these variations as all those little fibers are intertwined. That inevitably is going to create a weak spot. I mean, that's kind of how those spheres work. Is they take pressure from all sides, and that metal can be calculated to absorb that strength. So whereas
with you
can't really.
Strength is one problem. The other is fatigue. Carbon fiber doesn't deal with fatigue. It's very strong the first time you test it, but metal can flex to a certain point and bounce back. Carbon fiber, every flex takes away from its strength. So it's hard to know its current strength.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
That's fair.
Yeah, the special effects company I worked for when I got out of college, they had a carbon fiber conference room table built. And the company that was built, it was cool as shit. It was like a size of a sailboat. You could pick it up. And the company that was building it sent us all these little like samples of like, this is like in mid-90s. Sent us all these samples of carbon fiber, little tubes and squares and all this shit so we could play with it. Because they paid like $100,000 for this table or something. And of course, you give it to a bunch of 25-year-old nerds and go, hey, this is indestructible. What's the first thing we're going to do? We're going to go try to tear it up. So we're slamming it in doors.
And do that with dog toys.
Oh, yeah, doing heinous stuff to this stuff. And like it was pretty much indestructible. And then one day somebody just like casually tossed it down and it just hit the sweet spot in this piece. It was like a little brick, like about the size of like a CD in a case, just exploded, like just shattered into needles. Like we just finally hit that sweet spot. And yeah, that's apparently what happened with this bathysphere. And that was just terrible.
That's why we shouldn't make submarines out of it. Your piece of the Titanic, I'm sure is like legit and everything, but you mentioning like the historical artifacts made me think of, and this seems like the kind of thing Kyle would know offhand. There was a European country that we, I guess, lied to in like the early 70s,
all of them.
where we were like, hey, Denmark, we would love for you to have a moon rock. This is from the moon. Trust us. A real life moon rock. We definitely didn't keep all of them for ourselves. Here's one for you. And then like decades later, someone thought it was like, we never really tested this. And they tested it and it was literally petrified wood.
Yeah.
So we had the Danes believing maybe it's the Danes or someone else, but we had them like putting that in a display case. Yeah, Netherlands being like,
not even,
this is sweet. This is a moon rock. And then this,
what I think happened?
Petrified wood.
Here's my theory on what happened, Taylor. Someone stole the real moon rock and replaced it with petrified wood from the Netherlands because America doesn't lie. Okay, these colors don't run. We're an honest people. Okay. And if we tell you we're going to give you a moon rock, you can bet that's what you get.
They're clearly not. This looks like, you know what? And I know so little of moon rocks that you could give this to me and I'd be like, I would believe.
Okay, I've got to handle a moon rock before. I collect a lot of rocks and fossils and things. The moon supposedly smells like gunpowder. Like really? Neil Armstrong and all those guys came back, said like when they were changing out of their like extravehicular, their moon suits back into their space suits, that it smelled like gunpowder up there. But it was. They
could still smell stuff.
I mean, they could smell the dust on their suit as they're taking their suit off.
I've had a question about
smelling when they're out of the lunar.
How if you smell the same thing for some period of time, you go nose blind, right?
Yes.
The perfume you smell. Yeah, okay.
People don't know how their house smells.
People would be.
That's great examples. How do we know that oxygen doesn't smell?
I guess.
It smells.
You would have to be away from oxygen long enough for your nose blindness to go away.
I like this.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm sure it does smell.
Yeah, I mean the air we're breathing now is 18% oxygen, 79% nitrogen, and 3% trace element, helium, argon, etc. I believe that's right.
Sounds rightish.
I believe you.
Some CO2 in there.
Yeah, that's a good point. And oxygen being so reactive, it would make sense that it would have
oxygen is odorless at room temperature. It's also colorless and tasteless. However, oxygen concentrators and oxygen mass can sometimes develop odors.
That's written by a guy that has to breathe oxygen all the time.
Right.
So,
back to our conversation about